I should really get back to that quadcopter review. Just a few more Pokemon couldn't hurt. This is the somewhat redundantly named FQ777 FQ11, a toy-grade brushed direct-drive quadcopter between the micro and nano size classifications. Size is not a fixed concept with this one though. Its arms are foldable, which goes well with the fact that it's also stored and transported in the transmitter. The manufacturer, FQ777, has worked up a decent reputation at this point, so this should be interesting. Welcome to this review and flight test of the FQ11 quadcopter from FQ777. Though not distinguished by different model numbers or designs, the FQ11 actually comes in two flavors at two price points, one with and one without Wi-Fi FPV, this being the former. I feel I covered FPV generally and Wi-Fi FPV especially to death in my review of the FQ777 954, one of the first nano quadcopters to sport this feature, so watch that if you want to know more. Furthermore, each variant also comes in several different colors. In addition to the plain black pictured here, is also offered in the three distinctly Apple-inspired choices gold, rose or silver. Regardless which variant you get, the main thing to set the FQ11 apart from the competition is how its arms can be folded.
Autobots, transform!
Size-wise, it shrinks from almost micro size to almost nano size when folded. I'll be honest, I did have some preconceived notions regarding the durability of a folding mechanism on a $30 Chinese toy quadcopter. Of course, only time will tell how long it'll actually last, but I was at least pleasantly surprised by how sturdy it feels. As for the actual benefit of those extra few centimeters, from what I've been able to gather, the increased motor-to-motor distance should primarily help with stability, but also allows for larger propellers than on a Nano, which should also improve efficiency, as in increased flight times. More on this in the flight test portion of the review. It's understandable that FQ777 had to make some sacrifices in the name of foldability with the FQ11, and one of them is low light visibility. The LED lights have been relegated from their customary placement on the arms to the body of the aircraft. FQ777 has made the most of a bad situation, color coding and ensuring the lights are reflected by the light undercarriage, but it's still no complete success. I understand that the non-FPV variant do have an additional light instead of a camera in the front though, which should remedy things somewhat. For the transmitter, FQ777 has true to form decided to go with one that can also store and charge the quadcopter when folded up. It's another one of the manufacturer's signature awkward-looking cryptic monstrosities, but it's actually perfectly serviceable for everything but looking at once you learn your way around it. One noteworthy highlight is the longer, non-slippery sticks, addressing a common criticism of previous FQ777 models. If you get the Wi-Fi FPV version, you also get this adjustable mount that clips onto the back of the transmitter. It seems to hold devices up to around 6 inches, which means smartphones are in but tablets are out. The included accessories consist of a regular USB charging cable, in addition to the charger built into the transmitter, that in what have to be a world's first is not yellow. A mini screwdriver for accessing the battery compartments of the transmitter, yes, there are 2 of them, a sadly very poorly translated user manual, and the obligatory set of spare propellers. Similarly to FQ777's other recent multirotor, the 126C hexacopter, reviewed on this channel a couple of months back, the FQ11 is an overall very competent flyer with sporty rates, similar to the H8 Mini in terms of handling. I wouldn't recommend it as someone's first quadcopter, or primarily for flying indoors with, as even on its lowest rates it's quite sippy. But for someone with a bit of experience behind the sticks, outdoors, it's a lot of fun. The 3 rates are well measured, consistent and decently differentiated, save for the yaw, which on the higher rates feel a bit on the fast side. This is perplexing as FQ777 have already put in a super fast show-off yaw rate as a separate feature. Tail wagging, as it's called in the user manual, is activated via a dedicated button on the transmitter and makes the yaw speed go Super Saiyan. But this is not the only trick up this quadcopter's sleeve. Auto flips are in and of themselves nothing special, but deserve mention on the FQ11 for being unusually fast and tight, similar to the H8 Mini or Bayang Toys X7s. Hopefully, you'll be able to spot them throughout this flight. It's only too bad that flips are performed by clicking the right stick, which make them impossible to pull off while also applying pitch. An overly sensitive throttle was a criticism I had about the 126C, and unfortunately this seems to have carried over unaddressed to the FQ11, making the quadcopter jumpy, especially towards the beginning of the flight. On one hand, this does provide an impression of power, but on the other can also be a nuisance when flying indoors or in close quarters. The bigger, more efficient propellers allowed for by the foldable arms, probably in combination with the larger than usual 220 mAh battery, seem to be giving the FQ11 a real boost in flight times. 7+ minutes may not sound like much, but in this size class must be considered impressive. If you're coming from another nano or small micro, you will definitely notice the difference. And then there's the Wi-Fi FPV, should you decide to get that version. It'll set you back another $10 or so, and for that you get the possibility to connect your quadcopter to a smartphone app, which in turn allow you to view and record what the quadcopter sees, as well as control it through either touch controls or using your device's sensors. In other words, pretty much the exact same experience as with the previously reviewed FQ777-954 or CX-10W. In fact, I have a sneaking suspicion the same supplier is behind all of these Wi-Fi FPV solutions, seeing as the apps all look the same. As stated in previous reviews, it's impressive for what it is and perfectly fine for goofing around with, but shouldn't be mistaken for tried and true analog FPV. Due to round-trip latency and limited field of view, don't expect to be able to fly solely off the screen, especially without practice. Personally, I think this kind of functionality makes more sense on a docile flyer like the CX-10W. Finally, I feel I have to mention range. I usually try to put range in relation to intended use. If it's a tiny quadcopter flown by line of sight, range doesn't have to be hundreds of meters. If it's a larger aerial photography or FPV platform on the other hand, the expectations change drastically. With the FQ11 I feel it's on the short side, listed as 30 to 50 meters, but is on my unit probably a bit shorter than even the low end of that. Even just flying normally, I occasionally graze the range's edge and the controls turns unresponsive for a second. Is this something that's gonna bother you? I guess that depends on your flight style. In conclusion, although I presented a few nitpicks about the FQ777-FQ11, like the subpar lights, sensitive throttle and shorter than preferred range, I still feel that its strength, mainly that it flies really well and for surprisingly long, wins out. All in all, it's another solid entry into FQ777's lineup and a good purchase if you're looking for a small, sporty and portable outdoor quadcopter. Thanks for watching this review of the FQ777-FQ11. I hope it answered your questions. If not, you're welcome to post a comment and I will try to reply. Also, don't forget to post your impressions if you happen to own or have tried this quadcopter out. Alright, see you soon in another review. Don't know when that is? Click subscribe and you'll be notified. Bye!